It really started and took off in the wake of the Dobbs decision. The court's ruling that overturned Roe versus Wade. The outrage over that decision was so extreme that you saw, I think, a quite calculated effort to undermine the legitimacy of the Supreme Court by Democrats. Senate Democrats, for example, hearings, stories about scandals, some of which were pretty overblown, to say the least. So that has an impact on public opinion. You know, the public starts to believe that this court is corrupt, that this is, it's on the take, none of which is true. I mean, this is still a court. You may disagree with their decisions. It's a very conservative court. It is not a corrupt court. These are 9 justices who have very different views on how to interpret the Constitution, who are kind of in this titanic struggle over law, not politics. Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported to say that the court was going to save Trump from a criminal trial. No, it wasn't. That was never the decision. In fact, that decision is going to help protect Joe Biden from any future prosecution by Donald Trump if he wanted to do that. So, when we look at public opinion polls, sure, the court's taken a hit, but that's true over the years. The court often takes a hit. So do other institutions. And the court's opinion court's public opinion remains much higher than our other institutions, including the White House, Congress, and by far the news media.
Crawford, a CBS News veteran, called out the media, including her own network, for not more forcefully questioning Joe Biden's fitness for office. This isn't some fringe commentary, it's coming from inside the House. She points out that Biden's obvious cognitive decline became undeniable, particularly after his televised debate with Donald Trump. It's wild that this was not questioned at the time. The article suggests that Biden's advisors were managing his limitations. We're talking about the President of the United States here, and there are reports that his staff were having to manage him. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? According to the sources, there were even reports that Biden may have regretted dropping out of the race. Now, that could be either delusional or gaslighting. This begs the question, why weren't these issues more vigorously reported? Instead, those who pointed it out early were called hateful conspiracy theorists or rubes. It seems like there was a clear effort to downplay very real concerns. One article calls it one of the biggest cover-ups in recent memory. This suggests there is a significant failing by the media, and it appears some journalists at CBS now realize this. They're hoping that by pointing enough fingers, they won't be tarnished with the same level of disgrace as the Biden administration. But the criticism doesn't stop with Biden. Crawford also had some harsh words about media coverage of the Supreme Court. Let's dive into that.
Worst public image plunge. The U.S. Supreme Court, dominated by conservatives, issued rulings that gave presidents broad immunity from prosecution, limited the regulatory power of government, and saw critics sharply question the impartiality of some justices.
It does lend to the argument the Supreme Court has indeed been politicized, and that the opinions of the justices are not based on law and precedent.
The court's ruling more than 2 years ago to let states decide on abortion rights is still white hot.
I don't think that this is over by any stretch of the imagination, and it's still a galvanizing topic.
And conservative groups this year pursued even more hard-right policies on religion in the public square.
Crawford criticizes the media's handling of recent Supreme Court decisions. She says there was a calculated effort to undermine the legitimacy of the Supreme Court following the overturning of Roe v. Wade. The article also notes that there were stories about scandals that were pretty overblown, to say the least. The media implied the Supreme Court is corrupt and on the take. Crawford points out, though, that the court, although very conservative, is not corrupt. Rather, they have very different views on interpreting the Constitution. The source argues that the media coverage has negatively impacted public opinion. The article goes on to say that even the immunity decision was misrepresented and framed as saving Trump from criminal trial. Crawford notes that this decision will protect Joe Biden from prosecution by Trump in the future. Interestingly, the article points out that while the Supreme Court's public opinion has taken a hit, it's still much higher than other institutions like the White House, Congress, and, get this, the news media. This suggests that people aren't necessarily buying what the media is selling. The article goes on to mention that some conservative groups are pushing hard-right policies. The source further explains that the court's decision on abortion rights is still a galvanizing topic that may not be over anytime soon. Now, what does all of this mean? Let's talk about accountability. The article poses a crucial question. Should journalists be held accountable for purposely misrepresenting the truth or covering up stories? This is a question that deserves a lot of consideration. One of the sources suggests that liberal news networks are upset about misinformation on social media but see no issue with political on-network news buying Democrat lies about Biden's mental health. The source argues that misleading the public about Biden's mental health and the Supreme Court is more serious because they're purposely exploiting the freedom of the press. The piece also highlights the potential fallout of these admissions. The article even suggests that Trump may go after media outlets like he did with ABC and George Soros. This is a big point. The article also suggests that CNN's end-of-year reviews are doing the exact thing Crawford is criticizing the media for. So what can we take away from all of this? It seems clear that some members of the media are starting to acknowledge they didn't do their due diligence on key stories. This is not a partisan issue. This is about the media and its role in informing the public, especially when reporting on critical issues like the president's fitness and Supreme Court decisions. It's not just about one side or the other. It's about the need for objective reporting and a commitment to truth, regardless of political alignment. It's up to us as consumers of media to be critical, to seek out diverse perspectives, and to demand more from our news sources. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching.
One of the things we also do in the year-end correspondence roundtable is dig into what was undercovered or underreported. Jan?
Undercovered, underreported. That would be, to me, Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline that became undeniable in the televised debate.
At the presidential debate with Donald Trump.
Unquestioned. And, you know, it's starting to emerge now that his advisors kind of managed his limitations. It's been reported in the Wall Street Journal for 4 years. Still, incredibly, we read in the Washington Post that his advisors are saying that he regrets that he dropped out of the race. You know, that he thinks he could have beaten Trump. And I think that is either delusional or they're gaslighting.
President Biden has said repeatedly he was sick during the debate June 27th in Atlanta, and he's always been fine, and he leaves fine. That is his position, the position of many of his top aides as well, even though there is that reporting.
So what's the buzz?